I want to say something that is going to contradict what you have probably been told by every health article, every well-meaning friend, and possibly even your own doctor. Walking is not making your legs stronger. I know how that sounds. Walking is good for you. I am not disputing that. Walking improves cardiovascular health. It supports blood sugar management. It reduces stress. It improves mood. It is one of the most accessible and most consistently beneficial forms of physical activity available to adults of any age. But here is what walking does not do. It does not build leg strength. It does not reverse sarcopenia. It does not rebuild the fast-twitch muscle fibers that aging systematically dismantles in your quadriceps, your hamstrings, your glutes, and your calves. It does not increase the muscle mass that determines your ability to rise from a chair without using your hands, to catch yourself when you stumble, to climb stairs without gripping the railing, to live independently in your own home, on your own terms, for the next decade. And for millions of adults over 60 who have been walking faithfully for years, sometimes decades, believing that their daily walk is protecting their leg strength, this distinction is not academic. It is the difference between a body that is genuinely getting stronger and a body that is losing strength at the standard age-related rate of 1.5% to 2% per year, while feeling like it is doing something about it. I have been practicing medicine for over 6 decades. I am Dr. Michael Ellis, and I am 85 years old. And in all of that time, the single most consequential misconception I have encountered in older adult health is the belief that walking is sufficient for maintaining leg strength after 60. It is not. And the consequences of that misconception play out every single day in hospital wards, rehabilitation centers, and emergency rooms across this country in the form of falls, fractures, and loss of independence that were physiologically preventable. Today, I am going to tell you exactly why walking is not enough. I am going to explain the specific biological mechanism that builds genuine leg strength in an aging body. And I am going to give you the complete protocol that actually works. The one backed by research showing measurable strength gains in adults in their 70s, 80s, and even their 90s. The one that takes less time per week than your daily walk. And the one that produces results that walking, no matter how far or how fast, simply cannot. Before we go any further, drop a comment below right now and answer this honestly. How many years have you been walking regularly as your primary form of exercise? And have you noticed that despite those years of walking, your legs have still felt progressively weaker? Write your answer in the comments. I read every single one personally. Because what you share there is the real-world evidence that the biology I am about to explain is already affecting you. Now let us begin with the science. Because the reason walking cannot build leg strength is not an opinion, it is cellular biology. And once you understand it, you will never confuse activity with strength training again. The biology of why walking cannot build leg strength. Your skeletal muscle is composed of 2 fundamentally different types of muscle fibers that respond to exercise in completely different ways and serve completely different functions in your body. Type 1 muscle fibers are your slow twitch fibers. They are small, dense with mitochondria, highly resistant to fatigue, and designed for sustained, low-intensity activity over long periods. They are the fibers that power endurance activities, long walks, sustained standing, gentle cycling. They operate aerobically, using oxygen to produce energy continuously without fatiguing quickly. They are the fibers that walking develops and maintains. Type 2 muscle fibers are your fast twitch fibers. They are significantly larger than slow twitch fibers. They generate far more force per contraction. They fatigue more quickly, but produce the explosive, powerful contractions needed for standing up from a chair, catching yourself when you stumble, climbing stairs, carrying weight, and performing any movement that requires genuine muscular force rather than sustained, gentle effort. They operate primarily anaerobically, generating energy rapidly for short, powerful bursts. Here's the aging biology that changes everything about how you should be exercising after 60. Sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass and strength that I have discussed in previous videos, does not affect both fiber types equally. Research published in the Journal of Applied Physiology has clearly documented that sarcopenia preferentially and dramatically targets type 2 fast-twitch muscle fibers. The large, powerful, force-generating fibers that determine functional strength in daily life are lost at a rate 2 to 3 times faster than slow-twitch fibers during the aging process. By age 70, the average adult has lost approximately 30 to 40% of their type 2 fast-twitch fiber cross-sectional area compared to their peak in their 30s. The fibers that remain are smaller, less powerful, and slower to generate peak force than they were. This is the biology behind the chair you now push yourself up from with your hands, the railing you now grip on every staircase, the stumble that now takes longer to recover from than it used to. And here is the critical point that walking cannot address. Walking recruits almost exclusively type 1 slow-twitch fibers. The intensity of walking, even brisk walking, falls well below the recruitment threshold required to activate type 2 fast-twitch fibers in any meaningful way. The force demand of walking is simply not high enough to stimulate the fibers that are responsible for functional leg strength. This is not a flaw in walking. It is what walking is designed to do. Sustained, low-intensity aerobic activity, cardiovascular health, endurance, caloric expenditure. All of these are genuine and important benefits, but none of them require or stimulate type 2 fast-twitch fiber recruitment. And because those fibers are not stimulated, they continue to atrophy at the standard age-related rate, regardless of how many steps per day you accumulate. The principle that governs this is called the size principle of motor unit recruitment. Muscles recruit fiber types in order from smallest to largest based on the force demand of the activity. Low force demand walking recruits small, slow-twitch fibers only. Only when the force demand exceeds the capacity of slow-twitch fibers does the nervous system recruit the larger, fast-twitch fibers. And only when fast-twitch fibers are recruited do they receive the stimulus needed to maintain and build their mass and strength. To recruit your fast-twitch fibers, you need to perform movements that require enough force to exceed the slow-twitch threshold. In practical terms, that means movements that feel genuinely challenging. Movements where the last 2 or 3 repetitions require real effort. Movements that make your muscles work near the upper end of their capacity, rather than cruising indefinitely at a comfortable, sustainable pace. That is what resistance training is. And that is what walking is not. Type the word muscle in the comments right now if what you have just heard explains something you have been experiencing in your own body. Because the gap between activity and strength training is the most important distinction in exercise science for adults over 60. And now you understand exactly why it exists. What the research actually shows. Before I give you the protocol, I want to give you the research, because I know that what I have said so far contradicts deeply held beliefs about walking and exercise that have been reinforced for years. The evidence for what I am about to describe is not marginal. It is among the most robust and most consistently replicated findings in the entire field of geroscience. A landmark meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, examining 49 randomized controlled trials involving adults over 65, found that progressive resistance training produced significantly greater improvements in muscle strength, muscle mass, and functional mobility than aerobic exercise, including walking, across every age group studied. The effect sizes were clinically meaningful, not marginal statistical differences, real, measurable, functionally significant strength gains. The LIFE study, one of the largest exercise trials ever conducted in older adults, examined over 1,600 adults between 70 and 89 years old who were at risk for mobility disability. Participants randomized to a structured resistance and balance program had significantly better functional outcomes, lower rates of major mobility disability, and better physical performance scores than those randomized to a health education control condition that included walking recommendations. Perhaps most importantly for anyone who believes that strength training is only for younger adults, a 1994 study published in the New England Journal of Medicine by Dr. Maria Fiataroni and colleagues at Tufts University demonstrated that frail nursing home residents with an average age of 87 years who performed supervised resistance training for 10 weeks showed an average strength increase of 113% in their trained muscles, along with significant improvements in gait speed, stair climbing ability, and spontaneous physical activity. 87 years old, 113% strength increase, 10 weeks. The biology of muscle adaptation in response to resistance training does not have an upper age limit. Your muscles respond to progressive overload at 65, at 75, at 85, and beyond. The response may be slower than it was at 35, but it is real, it is measurable, and it is clinically significant in terms of the outcomes that matter most to older adults. Independence, fall prevention, functional mobility, quality of life. Walking cannot produce these outcomes. Resistance training can. That is not a pharmaceutical company's claim. It is 6 decades of accumulated exercise science research. What this actually is, the complete resistance training protocol for legs after 60. The title of this video promised you that something specific would build your legs stronger than walking. That something is progressive resistance training, and I am going to give you the complete protocol right now. Progressive resistance training means performing exercises that challenge your muscles near the upper end of their capacity and progressively increasing that challenge over time as your muscles adapt and grow stronger. The word progressive is everything. A challenge that felt hard 3 months ago and still feels exactly as hard today is not progressive. It is static, and static challenge does not produce continuing strength gains. The protocol I am about to give you targets all 5 primary muscle groups of the lower body: quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, calves, and hip abductors. It requires no gym membership, no expensive equipment, no getting down on the floor. Every exercise can be performed in your own home with a sturdy chair and the option to add resistance through a resistance band or light dumbbells as you progress. 3 sessions per week, non-consecutive days. Monday, Wednesday, Friday works well for most people. Each session takes 20 to 25 minutes. That is 60 to 75 minutes per week of resistance training that produces the leg strength outcomes that walking 1 hour per day, 7 days per week cannot. Exercise 1. Progressive sit to stand. This is your primary quadriceps and glute builder, and the most functionally important exercise in this entire protocol. Every time you stand up from any seated surface in your daily life, you perform this movement. If you cannot perform it without using your hands, you are already experiencing a functional strength deficit that will compound with every passing year until it is addressed. Sit toward the front edge of a sturdy chair with feet flat on the floor, hip width apart and positioned slightly behind your knees. Cross your arms over your chest. Lean your torso slightly forward from the hips until your nose is over your toes, shifting your center of gravity forward before you begin to rise. Drive through your heels and stand fully upright, squeezing your glutes firmly at the top. Hold for 1 full second, then lower yourself back to seated in a controlled manner, taking 4 full seconds to descend. Do not drop. Lower with complete control. Week 1 and 2, 3 sets of 8 repetitions. Use hands if necessary, but work toward removing them progressively. Rest 90 seconds between sets. Week 3 and 4, 3 sets of 10 repetitions. No hands. Focus entirely on the controlled 4-second lowering phase. Week 5 onward. Begin progressive overload. Either increase to 3 sets of 12 repetitions, or hold a light dumbbell against your chest to add resistance, or perform from a lower surface such as a firm sofa cushion to increase the range of motion. Any of these 3 progressions increases the challenge to your type 2 fast twitch fibers and continues the strength-building stimulus. The progression is what separates this from a rehabilitation exercise and makes it a genuine strength-building intervention. Your muscles adapt to a given challenge within 2 to 4 weeks. Once they have adapted, the stimulus must increase or the strength gains plateau. This is the progressive and progressive resistance training, and it is non-negotiable for continued results. Exercise 2. Romanian deadlift with resistance band. This exercise targets your hamstrings and glutes, the muscles running down the back of your thighs and across your buttocks, which are the primary muscles responsible for hip extension during walking, stair climbing, and getting up from low surfaces. These muscles are almost universally undertrained in older adults because almost no common activity of daily life targets them with sufficient resistance to stimulate type 2 fiber recruitment. Stand with feet hip width apart. Hold a resistance band looped under both feet with one end in each hand. If you do not have a resistance band, hold a light dumbbell in each hand. Stand tall with your back in a neutral position, not rounded, not excessively arched, simply its natural gentle curve. Hinge forward at the hips, not bending at the waist, pushing your hips backward as your torso descends toward the floor. Keep your back completely straight throughout the descent. Lower until you feel a strong stretch in the back of your thighs. Hold for 1 second at the bottom. Then drive your hips forward and return to standing, squeezing your glutes firmly at the top. The hinging from the hips, rather than bending at the waist, is the critical technical element that makes this exercise safe and effective for older adults. A hip hinge keeps the spine in its neutral position and loads the hamstrings and glutes correctly. A waist bend loads the lower back incorrectly and is both less effective and potentially harmful for those with lumbar sensitivity. Perform 3 sets of 10 repetitions. Rest 90 seconds between sets. Progress by increasing band resistance or dumbbell weight every 3 to 4 weeks as the current resistance becomes manageable for all 3 sets. Exercise 3. Step up with knee drive. This exercise builds single leg strength, which is the specific strength quality required for stair climbing, walking on uneven ground, and the single leg balance phase of every step you take. It targets the quadriceps, glutes, and hip flexors of the leading leg, while simultaneously challenging the balance and stability systems that fall prevention depends on. Stand in front of a sturdy step, stair, or a firm, stable platform. The height should be approximately 20 to 30 centimeters, something resembling the height of a standard stair step. Place your right foot entirely on the step, drive through your right heel and step up, bringing your left knee upward in front of you until your left thigh is parallel to the floor. Hold the top position for 1 full second with your full weight on your right leg. Then slowly lower your left foot back to the floor, taking 3 seconds to descend. Perform 10 repetitions on the right leg, then 10 repetitions with the left leg leading. That is 1 complete set. Perform 3 sets on each leg. Rest 60 seconds between sets. The knee drive component at the top of the movement is not decorative. It challenges the balance system at the moment of peak single leg loading, training the neuromuscular coordination that catching a stumble requires. It also activates the hip flexors that are responsible for lifting the foot adequately during the swing phase of walking, the weakness that causes the flat shuffling gait and toe dragging that increases fall risk in many older adults. Progress this exercise by holding a light dumbbell in each hand as your strength improves, then by increasing the step height gradually. The step up is one of the most scalable exercises available for older adults because the challenge can be increased continuously simply by adjusting height and added weight without changing the movement pattern. Exercise 4. Single leg heel raise with 3-second lowering. Your calves, specifically the gastrocnemius and soleus muscles, are not simply aesthetic muscles. They are the secondary circulatory pump returning blood from your lower extremities to your heart. They are the primary ankle stabilizers, preventing the ankle collapse that causes falls on uneven ground. And they are the propulsion muscles generating the push-off force that drives each step forward in your gait. Stand beside a sturdy chair or counter, with your fingertips resting lightly on the surface for balance support only. Transfer your full weight onto your right foot. Slowly rise up onto the ball of your right foot as high as you comfortably can. Hold at the top for 1 second. Then lower your heel back to the floor, taking 3 full counts. 3 seconds of controlled lowering. Not a drop. A deliberate eccentric descent. Perform 15 repetitions on the right calf. Transfer to the left foot and repeat. That is 1 complete set. Perform 3 sets on each calf. Rest 60 seconds between sets. The single leg version, rather than a double leg heel raise, is specifically chosen for 2 reasons. First, it doubles the load on each calf compared to performing the exercise on both feet simultaneously, providing the higher force stimulus needed to recruit type 2 fast twitch fibers, rather than simply maintaining the slow twitch endurance capacity that double leg heel raises develop. Second, it trains single leg ankle stability, which is the balance quality most directly relevant to fall prevention. The 3-second lowering phase is the primary strength-building stimulus in this exercise. Research on eccentric training, the controlled lengthening of a muscle under load, consistently shows that the eccentric phase produces greater muscle protein synthesis and greater strength gains than the concentric lifting phase. You are building more strength on the way down than on the way up. Rushing the descent removes the most valuable part of the exercise. Progress by increasing to 20 repetitions per set when 15 becomes comfortable. Then add a light ankle weight as resistance. Exercise 5. Resistance band hip abduction. The hip abductors, specifically the gluteus medius running along the outer hip, are the most chronically undertrained and most functionally critical muscle group in fall prevention for older adults. I have described this muscle in previous videos, but its importance deserves repetition. Every step you take involves a brief moment of single leg balance, during which your gluteus medius is the primary muscle preventing your pelvis from dropping toward the unsupported side. When this muscle is weak, your pelvis tilts with every step, creating a lateral swaying gait that significantly increases your energy expenditure during walking, reduces your walking speed, and dramatically increases your vulnerability to falls on any surface that is not perfectly flat. Stand beside a sturdy chair with your right hand resting lightly on the back. Loop a resistance band around both ankles. Stand with feet hip-width apart. Keeping your right leg completely straight and your toes pointing directly forward, slowly lift your right leg directly out to the side against the resistance of the band. The resistance band provides the progressive overload that a standard leg raise without resistance cannot. Lift to a comfortable height, approximately 12 to 18 inches. Hold for 2 seconds at the top. Lower slowly over 3 seconds. Perform 12 repetitions on the right side. Turn around and repeat on the left side. 3 sets on each side. Rest 60 seconds between sets. The resistance band is essential for this exercise to function as a genuine strength-building intervention rather than a rehabilitation movement. Without resistance, the force demand of a lateral leg raise falls below the type 2 fiber recruitment threshold. With a light to moderate resistance band, the exercise enters the force range that stimulates fast twitch fiber activation and genuine strength development in the gluteus medius. Progress by moving to a heavier resistance band every 4 to 6 weeks as the current band becomes manageable for all 3 sets across all 12 repetitions. Type the number 5 in the comments if you plan to add hip abduction with a resistance band to your weekly routine. Because the gluteus medius may be the single most important muscle in your body for preventing the fall that changes everything. And I want to know how many people in this community are hearing this for the first time. The progressive overload schedule, your 12-week plan. Here is exactly how to structure the progression across 12 weeks to ensure your muscles are continuously challenged beyond the adaptive threshold throughout the entire program. Weeks 1 and 2, foundation. Learn the technique of all 5 exercises. Perform 2 sets of each exercise at the starting repetition numbers described above. Speed and repetitions are secondary to movement quality in these 2 weeks. Every exercise should feel technically controlled before any progression begins. Weeks 3 and 4, volume increase. Increase to 3 sets of each exercise at the starting repetition numbers. Rest periods remain at 90 seconds between sets. Begin removing hand assistance from sit to stand if not already achieved. Weeks 5 and 6, repetition increase. Increase repetitions on all exercises by 2 reps per set. Sit to stand moves from 10 to 12. Heel raises from 15 to 17. Hip abduction from 12 to 14. Step-ups from 10 to 12. Romanian deadlift from 10 to 12. Weeks 7 and 8, resistance increase. Add light resistance to all exercises where applicable. A light dumbbell held against the chest for sit to stand. Heavier resistance band for hip abduction. Heavier resistance band or dumbbells for Romanian deadlift. Ankle weight for heel raises. Light dumbbells in each hand for step-ups. Weeks 9 and 10, combined progression. Maintain the added resistance from weeks 7 and 8. Increase repetitions by 2 again across all exercises. Weeks 11 and 12, reassessment and consolidation. Reassess your baseline measures from week 1. How many sit-to-stands can you perform without hands in 60 seconds? How long can you hold single leg balance? How does stair climbing feel compared to 12 weeks ago? The improvement in these functional measures is the real outcome of this program. After week 12, continue the program indefinitely, maintaining the resistance and repetitions achieved at week 12, and reassessing and progressing every 8 weeks thereafter. Strength maintenance in older adults requires continued progressive stimulus. A program that ends at 12 weeks produces 12 weeks of benefit, followed by gradual return toward the baseline. A program that continues produces continuing protection. How to combine this with walking? The correct integration. I want to be very clear about something before we close. I am not telling you to stop walking. Walking provides genuine cardiovascular, metabolic, and psychological benefits that resistance training does not fully replace. The ideal program for an adult over 60 includes both. What I am telling you is that walking alone is not sufficient for leg strength, and that if you have been relying on it as your primary physical activity, you have a strength deficit that only resistance training can address. The correct integration is this. Perform your resistance training protocol 3 days per week on non-consecutive days. Walk on the remaining days if you are able and enjoy it. The resistance training and the walking address different physiological systems and do not interfere with each other when structured this way. On days when both are planned in the same day, perform resistance training first and walking afterward. Resistance training requires neuromuscular freshness and glycogen availability for maximum quality. Walking afterward as a cool-down uses the same muscles in a low-intensity way that aids recovery without compromising the strength training session. If you are currently deconditioned and 6 sessions of activity per week feels too ambitious, begin with 2 resistance training sessions per week and 1 walking session. Build the resistance training habit first, because that is the highest priority intervention for the strength outcomes this video is about. Walking can be increased gradually once the resistance training habit is established. Nutrition, the missing half of the strength building equation. No resistance training protocol produces its full potential without adequate protein intake. This is not optional supplementary advice. It is as fundamental to the outcome as the training itself. When you perform resistance training, you create microscopic damage to the muscle fibers you have worked. Your body repairs this damage during the recovery period between sessions, and in the process builds the fibers back slightly larger and slightly stronger than they were before. This repair and building process is called muscle protein synthesis, and it requires amino acids, the building blocks of protein, to be present in adequate quantities in your bloodstream during the recovery window. Research has clearly established that older adults require significantly more dietary protein per kilogram of body weight than younger adults to achieve the same rate of muscle protein synthesis. The commonly cited recommended dietary allowance of 0.8 grams per kilogram per day was developed from studies in younger adults and is now considered inadequate for older adults engaged in resistance training by the majority of researchers in the field. The evidence-based target for older adults performing resistance training is 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. For a 75 kilogram adult, that is between 90 and 120 grams of protein daily, distributed across meals rather than consumed in one large serving, because the muscle protein synthesis response to a single protein dose plateaus at approximately 30 to 40 grams, regardless of how much more is consumed in that sitting. Practical, high-quality protein sources that research shows are particularly effective for stimulating muscle protein synthesis in older adults include eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, canned and fresh fish, particularly salmon and tuna, chicken breast, legumes combined with whole grains, and whey protein if whole food intake is insufficient to reach the daily target. Aim for a minimum of 25 to 30 grams of protein at each of your 3 main meals, and include a protein-rich snack after your resistance training sessions, specifically to support the muscle protein synthesis that the training has initiated. At 85 years old, I will tell you something that no research paper can convey as directly as personal experience. The day you realize your legs are no longer reliably doing what you ask of them is one of the most unsettling moments of later life. Not because the legs themselves are so dramatically different from what they were, but because the legs are how you move through your life. They are how you get to the kitchen in the morning, how you visit a friend, how you play with a grandchild on the floor and get back up again, how you remain in your own home, rather than somewhere smaller and more managed. Walking is good. Walk. Enjoy it. Let it be part of your life every single day if you can. but understand what it is not doing for you. Understand that the strength your legs need to carry you through the next decade requires a different kind of work, a harder kind, a more targeted kind, a kind that challenges your muscles beyond the comfortable, sustainable pace of a morning walk into the genuinely effortful range where fast twitch fibers wake up, respond, and grow. 3 sessions per week, 25 minutes each, 5 exercises, progressive overload every 4 to 6 weeks. That is the difference between aging legs and aging strong legs. Your legs have carried you to where you are. Give them the work they need to carry you forward. If this video gave you something genuinely important today, please subscribe. Every single week I bring you honest, research-based, practical health information designed specifically for adults over 60 who deserve accurate answers rather than comfortable myths. And leave a comment below right now. Has your doctor ever specifically told you that walking is not sufficient for maintaining leg strength after 60? Or has this been the first time you have heard this distinction made clearly? I will be in the comments reading every single response personally. Take care of yourselves. I will see you in the next one.